Right, Ben, what are we doing today?
So you're going to put some seedlings in a minute, Sean. So what we're going to give you is some basic material to use. So we've got some peat-free compost here, which is ready. Needs a bit of bulk to save the water and also get some farmyard manure. So we're keeping this all organic as well. So bit of manure. We said last time you want a sort of ratio of 4:4:2 maybe. You don't want this to be too heavy. And then soil, which we will eventually take from the garden, but for now I bought some.
What's fascinating about this, of course, is that the compost is really good for getting seedlings going, but it only provides sort of nutrients for about 3 months normally, which is why you need soil for growing crops, and a mix is quite good because it's the optimum sort of keeping water retention, which is important, but also providing the goodness for the seedlings to grow.
Yeah, and you've got to get your hands in it and break the clumps down. Give it a good mix. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
Nice ringtone.
Yeah, nice. Actually reminded me of my next meeting.
And the beauty about doing this is you can't do too much, can you? Because you just store it. Keep a bucket elsewhere.
Yeah. Basically, this is outside for the time being, but eventually when you open one of these, then in the shed it goes. Right, so Sean, you're going to use this in the seed trays.
Perfect, look forward to it.
So Sean, what are we about to do now?
Well, we've just got your soil that you've mixed up, nice little blend there. What we now want to do is get the seeds started in the garden. Again, no experts, but I've done this obviously several times from when I was a kid with my mum in our little greenhouse. The things that are a bit more modern now, things like this seed tray now, is that the seed tray itself is relatively simple. Just plastic. These are quite small. They do much bigger ones if you want, but we're going to use this for now. Big holes in the bottom of it because you want some drainage. The downside of that at the moment is that in a greenhouse like this, it's going to dry out really quickly. So the beauty about having a tray underneath it is that you can have a little bit more water in there. It pulls up through the holes and it allows to keep the whole thing going. You've got to be careful though, particularly if it's cold. You don't want these seeds to get rotting. You don't want to end up with too much water in there routinely, because you will see the seeds will just rot. Finally, of course, once it's up and running and growing, ideally, particularly if you're in the garden, you want to keep some warmth in there. The great thing about items like this is that these create a plastic cover like a mini greenhouse. Ideally they'd be for outside, but they work just as well inside. The beauty is they've got these little rotating things. We burn your clothes in on these. In effect, you can see on this side, you can see they've got open holes here. If you look on this side, you can see you can open up the holes to allow them to air vent or not. And what this keeps is it keeps some of the moisture in there. So when we've got them on top like that, all of a sudden now the moisture won't evaporate away, it'll keep in there. Again, you need to make sure these are aired though, because the danger is that's the ideal rotting environment for not. Yeah. So anyway, so for now we'll do it in here. We've got some 3 seeds we're going to have a go at today. We're going to have to make sure we get the labelling properly. We've got organic broccoli. I have to say, a personal favourite for me. I eat a lot of broccoli, and actually the story behind this one is genuinely, when I was a kid, that's what I grew in the garden, and my mother used to send me out, cut the sprigs of it for us to have as a garden. I'm one of 5 kids, so we got through a lot of that. Cucumber. This is almost impossible to grow outside the greenhouse, but be really interested to see how this does, and it's an organic cucumber,
which means it's come from a sort of heritage
of organic, but be interesting to see what that. And then finally, the good old runner beans. These are like triffids if you get them right. And what I used to love is, as a kid, we used to put these into a jam jar with some toilet tissue inside the jam jar, holding the water in, and you could watch them germinate on the side. So anyway, so before we start, we've got this the tray here. What we're going to do is we can either use a shovel, or frankly I quite like to use my hands on this bit of the project. Literally just grab handfuls of the compost and the earth mix, just spread it around. Doesn't have to be particularly firm at all at this stage. So we're just going to do the first 3 areas and just get them roughly sorted, and then get rid of the spare. So it looks very nice. What we're going to do, let's do the runner beans first. So these ones, it looks at different colours for when you sow them, outdoors or indoors. Sow them April, May. We're in April and we're in a greenhouse, so this is ideal. Top tip: don't rip these apart and throw the top away, because you probably want to use these again. The danger of doing one crop is that you'll get an awful lot of runner beans in one go, and actually you can't eat them all. What you want to try and do is do them gently. So here's a handful of runner beans. Ideally I'd be doing these in a slightly deeper bed than this, but it'll work nicely here. So a nice little handful of beans here. Question is, how many do you want to do? I have to say that I'm a bit brutal about this sort of stuff, because not all of them will grow. You have to have an idea of how many plants you want, and I tend to plant at least double the amount that I think I'm going to need, and then it's a bit Darwinian. I talk to them as they're growing, and those that don't grow very quickly, I'm afraid, are going to be culled at some stage.
I knew there was something about you, Sean.
So it's survival of the fittest, it's Darwinian. So on this particular one, I'm going to use a little prod just to save my nails. I'm just literally going to pop a hole into the compost, and then I'm going to drop a bean into that hole. Missed it first time. Push it down so it's nicely underground, and then we're going to put some soil in over the top, but I'm going to do that for all of these. So I'm going to work my way around, just do the first 10 of these. We're going to pop a bean in each of these. Now, some of the instructions will talk about them going much deeper than this to get them going. It'll talk about all sorts of different ways of planting these. If you plant these directly into the ground, you probably want to end up going rather deeper than we are now. But bluntly, that will do fine. And now, all we're going to do is to get a little bit more soil, coat it over the top, and just firmly, not push it hard, but just gently push it down. That will create a nice little environment for them. The one top tip now is, if it's domed, you'll find it difficult to get water in, so just gently push the top to create a little bit of a dip in the top, and that way when you water it, you've got water that will go straight down into them. And there we got our first broad beans.
That's good.
So we'll do...
Shall we water them, or
let's do the other 2
okay.
As we go. Now you're going to have to remember, Bern, because we haven't labelled these yet. So the first 2 rows are beans. I'm just going to fold these over. What I do is I tend to sellotape these up now, but keeping them so you've got the date of them, because all of them have got a date. You can probably see on the bottom of this one here, May 2025, and it lasts till December 2027. I'm probably wrong here, but my own experience is that if you use them next year, you don't tend to get quite as much success with a crop as you do if they're fresh. So you save money, yes, but is it as effective? I'd probably plant more of them next year if you wanted to do it rather than fewer of them.
I mean, in the scheme of things, seeds are cheap.
Yeah, they are. But if you were trying to do this on a budget, I think you might be a little bit more careful about them, because I don't know. Do you remember what the beans cost when you bought those?
No idea.
No.
Basically, took a handful off the shelf.
Yeah.
But what you can do, when you finish the season, you take the beans, take them indoors, let them dry, and keep them for next season.
Yeah.
So we will try and use them to see what the result is, but I've got about 10 beans ready to go, and it'd be interesting to see when we planted those, how successful they are.
Yeah, and this is all a voyage of discovery. So, so these 2 lanes we've just done for beans. So let's have a look at the cucumbers next. Again, just checking the dates. April they can be sown. So always got to be a little careful. On this time we've got a sealed foil container for the seeds. Tap them, they're a bit of a devil sometimes to get out. Some of the seeds, particularly some of the flowers, are tiny, and you end up having to sprinkle them. I don't like doing that because I've got big fudgy fingers. You end up having several of them together and then big gaps. So ideally, you want to try and separate them out. So let's see if I don't make the complete mess of this in front of the camera. Right, you can see in there the seeds. They're quite a good size seeds. This is the cucumber.
Oh, pumpkin seeds.
Yeah, so I'm going to just pop those out on my hand.
And it's one again in each little hole?
Yeah, one again. I mean, if I was doing, generally speaking, I would do these in a slightly bigger pot and put 2 or 3 in together, because these are quite small, and as soon as they start to grow, you'll be wanting to transplant them, because particularly the beans, they're like triffids. Once they get going, they'll be mad. So anyway, so we're going to plant these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's about 15 of these. So again, I'm going to work my way around with a dibber, making a hole down to the bottom, not quite to the bottom, but because they will sort themselves out. And now, just one at a time, I'm going to drop a seed into the bottom of that. So there's 15 of those. Again, exactly as before, a little bit of soil, just smear across the top, firm it down, and then just push in the middle just to give a little bit of space for the water to go in. So it's 2 rows of beans, 3 rows of cucumber, leaves us 3 rows left. And the one we're going to have
very special to finish on.
Very special is the broccoli. We haven't got any more seeds left of the cucumber, but it's worth. If you've run out, I would tend to keep the seed packet, fold it up, and just put it into the seed tray. That way, you just keep a reference number of it. If you're going to be doing this really carefully, did you know how many different types of broccoli there were when you look for seeds?
92 and a half.
I don't know the answer, but I do know there's lots of different sorts, and they all have their own peculiarity. Some of them grow really well, and so for me,
it's quite tough to grow broccoli, I think.
Well, once they get going,
good flower.
Yeah, my point being is that I think it's worth remembering what you're growing. Doing a bit of advertising now. What you're growing, because if you don't like these, then you'll try a different type next time round. So that's all ready now for water. So now we've finished that, what we want to try and do is get it nicely damp now, because the moisture and the warmth in here will germinate nicely. So we're going to, ideally I'd have a little watering can, but in the heat of here, I'm not going to be too worried about overwatering. And there we go. Now what we've got to do is label them. That's the one thing that we haven't done. So in order we had them was 2 rows of beans, then we had organic cucumber, and then so 3 of those and 3 of those. First is the broad beans.
So what's the routine? The little label goes at the end of the row.
Well,
so you could put that there, couldn't you?
Correct. Yeah.
And that would be the end.
And also, I'll tend to put the date on, because normally with about 14 days you get the first germination.
Good idea.
So today is the 17th. Is it today? So 17th of the 4th. So broad beans 17th of the 4th, and we put it in the edge of that bed, and you know those 2 beds are there. So now these got to be somewhere warm. So ideally, the sunshine is probably going to be most. So it's probably going to be up on one of these sorts of shelves up here. We'll get rid of that wood. There we go.
So we're going to put the lid on, Sean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have to say in this environment, I probably wouldn't. But if you are unsure about how often you're going to water, then maybe, because this keeps the moisture in. We don't want these to get too hot. But to be honest, in the germination phase, which this is in at the moment, there we go. And the excitement here is we're going to zoom in. Actually, I'm going to just take it off before we stop filming here, because I get very childishly excited when we see the first signs of these coming up.
Give me a childish excitement face. That's it.
Because it particularly, you know, looking at it now, it's nothing more than a load of just dirt and soil that we've mixed up together. Within 3 weeks, I'd expect to see this a hive of green, and that will be the real first sign of growing your own stuff in this greenhouse. Perfect in growing conditions for those plants, and look forward to seeing them coming up.
Great stuff.